We're just introducing Reverend Dr. Martha Creek. She served as Great Lakes Unity Consultant, so she's been very involved into Unity. She is member of Unity Institute faculty and is a member of the affiliated New Thought Network, which is called abbreviated ANTN. She's attended Emerson Theological Seminary, master's and a doctorate there, Byron Katie School for the Work, Hoffman Institute. She is a Healthy Congregations facilitator and trainer. And Linda and Connie, you remember that we did the Healthy Congregations workshop with the board a couple years ago. That was awesome. And her goal is to keep empowering teachings to the whole of the planet, not just around here, but boy, she's going out to the entire planet to serve those who serve. And we're looking at the book Presence and Potential tonight. She also has another book, Martha's Pearls, which is also available, and you can go onto her website. She'll give you all that information tonight. Welcome, Martha.
Thank you, Linda. Hi, everybody. It's my highest privilege to be here. And as Linda said, I'm very motivated by a mission to serve those who serve. So I believe you're here tonight in the spirit of that. So I bow to you in the ways you serve and what has called us to serve and what has equipped us to serve. And I am devoted to getting empowered teachings to the whole of the world, the planet, humanity. And this little book is an example of that this was actually a work that I've been doing for 20 or 30 years now. And I never sat and actually wrote a book. This is transcribed from teaching that I've been doing all this time. And people that said, this is so good, it's got to be put in a book. And I'm like, okay, let's get it in a book. And it's now available on Audible. So it's the first time a book has been available on Audible as well. I also have it recorded in my own voice and in video on YouTube for free. If anybody wants to watch it or listen to it on YouTube, you're welcome to send those links out. And I don't know if Connie, you're available to grab those links off YouTube or not, or I can when we're in a discussion, in a dialogue in a little bit, in our questions and answers.
Yeah,
It's in print, it's in Audible, and it's also free on YouTube for anybody that wants to hear it, read it, that won't read, that would want to just listen to it, and they don't have to purchase it. So I've done quite a bit to get it out in the world. And the man that helped said that it's already reached 11 countries in just a few months. So it has its own life and it's finding its way out. So I'm delighted you're here. I'm honored to be a part of your presence and potential. And I'll go through it just in snippets of this. And then I want to see those of you that have read it. Linda pointed out one particular feature from page 19. We'll take a look at a little dive in. And if you all have questions, there'll be a time for that as we get into it. As it says in the introduction in the book, the tenets of this are actually simple. However, they're not very easy. And as Linda and I were discussing before y'all came on, some of you, we've not had much modeling for this. We've not had education around this. We operate from a patterned part of our mind that is often what Dr. David Hawkins would say below the line, which means our reptilian brain. And the reptilian brain is the part of our brain that's a knee-jerk, instinctual reactor. So presence and potential speaks about having enough regulation of ourselves, enough spiritual discernment and emotional discipline to have emotions and the emotions not have us. How to have and feel even a triggered response and not let the triggered response take the lead. So presence and potential speaks about keeping our higher self, our highest self in the lead position when possible, and how to develop through spiritual practice more aptitude, more likelihood that even when we don't get our way, didn't get a need met, a thwarted wanting, or whatever, that part of us, the injured, wounded, traumatized part of us does not take over, that we still have enough self online that we can observe the trigger without falling under the spell of the trigger. So decades and decades of this, other people would refer to this reptilian part of our brain as lower consciousness, or emotional unhealthy or dysfunctional emotional health. And it's also where any part of us that has been wounded or traumatized in the past, that's waiting for healing, is also looking for an outlet. So anytime we don't get what we want, or somebody crosses us or gives us the look or uses a tone that reminds us, it's easy for that reservoir of unhealed emotion and suppressed, depressed, disowned, and denied emotion to take over. So even though the tenets of it are simple, it's not that easy to do without a great deal of deep inner work and a spiritual practice and discipline, which is not a tick box exercise, but a direction to go in. It's no place we ever arrive, but a direction to go in for our lives. So in chapter 1, I speak about how to clarify and define what I think and believe, and allow others to think and believe the way they do. How to define what I think and believe and stay connected to others, even if they don't agree with us. So this is not easy either. And some of the practical help around this could be to begin to speak in terms of, well, this is what I'm thinking, or this is what I'm believing. This is what I'm wondering about. This is what I'm not clear about. This is what I'm concerned about. So not just a platitude of, oh, let's make I statements, but an actual application of I statements, instead of, you are wrong, you should believe like I do, you missed the boat on this. So I would encourage anybody that wants to move in this direction to drop using the word you and speak in I terms. I'm wondering where that came from. I'm wondering how you arrived at that. I was thinking that. I was believing that. Or are you believing? So think about then how these few little tips like this may make a difference in your life, to stop using the word you, or to use it less, and to speak in I terms. And to be aware that most people, when they hear you did this, you did that, you should have done this, you should have done that, I wanted you to do that, I needed you to do that, is triggering. They're more apt to go into their reptilian brain. They're more apt to get defensive. They're more apt to get anxious, frustrated, irritated. And of course, the more emotional they become, the less functioning they have. So as anxiety and emotion goes up, functioning goes down. So in order to get functioning back up, we've got to have some regulation of the emotions. And it doesn't mean suppress, depress, and disown and deny emotion, but to give the emotions some space and keep enough high self online in the lead position that it doesn't take over. So let me pause here and see any commentary, feedback, challenges, discussion, dialogue, anything about this concept of defining myself, knowing what I think and believe, what are my convictions, and staying in good connection with others, even if their thoughts and beliefs are different to my own. comments, questions? And Connie, if you see a hand that I don't, would you
I
point that?
see.
Beverly.
Beverly, you're muted. You'll have to unmute Beverly so we can hear you.
Thank you, Beverly.
We still can't hear you.
I'm looking for the raised hand. I don't see it.
It's not a raised hand. She was waving it in the camera.
Oh,
It was Beverly. I don't know where she went now.
You unmute Beverly. Connie.
She disappeared. Oh, there she is.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Uh, Given the political climate right now, this is very, very difficult to use. I have tried, I think that I personally forget to use iMessages, and I find myself not talking at all in a group. And then I come home very frustrated. So will I find ways to be able to speak my truth without offending others? That's
Well,
what
I
I'd like to know.
Well, that's to be determined. You know, we don't know, but it's easily to be offended and it's easily to offend, even if we don't intend to offend, for people that don't have a high tolerance for disagreement or for varying viewpoints and varying perspectives. So this training, this book speaks to developing a way to speak in I statements, and from where I stand, my perspective on this is that, and there's absolutely certain groups that regardless of how well we do this, Beverly, they still could be offended. They likely may have a conflictual response to us and would likely feel defensive if we agree with them. So that's up to you about how you do this. And it's absolutely sane and sensible to keep some kind of awareness to, is the parties that I'm with or the relationships that I'm in, do they have a high degree of tolerance for this? Can they tolerate disagreements? Can they tolerate varying viewpoints and different perspectives? And when you absolutely know that they've demonstrated over and over and over that they can't, then it's not going to go well, regardless of how well we speak in I statements. If we're in relationships or in groups or in gatherings where they're already jacked up and anxious, then we know that their listening won't be high, their listening won't be deep, because they'll be too reactive really to do much listening. So I encourage myself to really monitor where I think there's an opening for dialogue. And if I see that there's an opening, I may test it to see, through statements of, I know that we differ on our beliefs. I know that we differ about where we stand on this. So I call it, I just named the ghost. I know that we have differing views on this and different perspectives. And I'm open to a discussion about it or a dialogue about it, even knowing that we disagree. And if that is anxious for you or conflictual for you, then I don't want to open it up, because my relationship with you means more than our disagreement does.
I like that.
We may or may not have the capacity to discuss it. It may have to stay an off topic, so to speak.
Mhm.
It's like testing the waters to see what capacities they have. And for me to still take some responsibility for, if I left feeling frustrated, then it's like I abandoned myself in some way. And it may even be saying, I don't really want to get into this here. I just don't want to leave without you knowing that I don't agree with this. So I don't want an argument or anything like that. It's just important for me to say that you're welcome to your beliefs. I absolutely honor you and the way you believe. And it's important for me to say that I don't agree with it and it's not what I believe. And it could go either way. Somebody could respect us for it and somebody else could, come at us,
Right.
depending on the shape they're in, so to speak. April, go ahead, honey.
Well, it's just interesting because I had an experience of this week, and it was actually a follow-up to a situation that happened a month or so ago at work. And it was a matter of perception and experience. And this person came up and gave me a hug at work, and which was, I thought, oh, this is great, kind of a reconnection after a situation a month ago. But then she wanted to talk about it, and it was really a situation where I thought I was being helpful, and the way I was being helpful, she was embarrassed and didn't, just felt uncomfortable, and she thought I was out to get her or make her look bad, where I reminded her to include something in a training. It was really so minor, and I thought I was helping. And what it really came to is she really believed that I was trying to make her look bad or demean her. And I was shocked when I learned it, because I was just trying to be helpful. But it came down to what I said to her, and it helped a bit. But what I said was, the truth is, it's true for both of us. Both sides are true. I did not intend it. So in that part, you're wrong, because I would not intentionally, make somebody look bad in public, or ever, I would hope. But I said, but I also accept the fact that I did. And that's how you felt. And I honor the fact that that's true in you. And I hope you can see it in me that it wasn't my intention. And I had apologized a month ago, I'm like, I didn't even realize that happened. I didn't realize it took place, but she didn't accept it. And that's what I learned this week. She's like, well, no, because you said you didn't mean it. Even though you said you're sorry, that wasn't your intention. I said, well, it wasn't my intention. That part's true, but I am sorry you felt that way. And it was really a matter of like feelings. It was a good reminder to me that feelings are always true, even when it's not a fact about the situation. And at one point she said, well, we can agree to disagree. I said, I'm not even disagreeing. I own that I made you feel embarrassed, and I am truly sorry for that. And it was not my intention. And it was still awkward afterward. But it was like one of those things where there wasn't going to be a peaceful resolution to that situation. And so we had to just let it be. And I'm like, hands off. And I had done that over the past month, and I was grateful for the attempt to reconnect. And I'm glad we did, have the discussion, because we didn't discuss it before. It was just, I learned that she felt a certain way, but it was just kind of a weird situation, because it really was just a matter of perspective, and it ruffled feathers in a way that was greater than it should have been. And even beyond what was logical, but that was me trying to find logic where there may not have been in the situation.
Well, and I so relate to that, honey, because I've got a high rationale, and I believe that other people have a capacity for rationale. So I often come at it from that kind of approach, when the truth is, for people that lack that, and it's not a lacking in their soul or anything like that, we're just not wired that way. We may as well be speaking Japanese to bring
That's how I felt. Yeah.
That's a great example of it, honey, versus saying, so I'll offer some tips tonight based on presence and potential. So in the first chapter, it was to speak in I statements and to be clear about what I think and believe, and to do my best to convey that, and to let others have the freedom and liberation to stand wherever they stand. In this second chapter, this is right in alignment with it, what you've shared here, which is to, and Linda pointed it out before we started the class formally, to pause, presence myself, and proceed. So she's upset, she's triggered, she absolutely believes that I did something to humiliate her, demean her in some way. So before any response, pause, presence myself, or pray. The 3 P's could be pray, and then proceed, which could also then using terminologies like, I'm absolutely sorry. There's a misunderstanding here. I'm sincerely sorry. I regret how this came across. I assure you, I had no intention to demean or humiliate you in any way. And what would make it right with you? What would ease this for you? So in us regulating our own anxiety and being able to hold some presence, we can offer that presence to others. Now, they may say, screw you, I'm not speaking to you. We don't know how they're going to respond. But typically with somebody holding a space of presence and an open-heartedness about it, a sincere request of apology, a statement of regret, and an offer to make it right, it likely will go back up above the line instead of going further below the line. So even if they're in the triggered, defensive, hurt, wounded reptilian brain, pausing, praying, presencing ourselves typically brings people back up above the line. And one dang thing's for sure, we're not going to be below the line. Regardless of what they do, we can hold presence and potential for ourselves to say, I sincerely regretted this. I've stated it in an apology. I've offered to make it right. And then it stands with them. They either will or they won't. They'll be open to it, or they may have to go to their grave, mad and injured. And part of that then is accepting it. Like, I did my part. That's all I'll ever be responsible for. I cleaned up my side of the road the best I could. And what they do with it is entirely up to them after that. Chapter 3 speaks about keeping a clear distinction between facts and feelings. Now, this sounds like, well, duh. I know a fact from a feeling, but it's not clean. It's not clear. It's like if we thought we saw a snake, we would absolutely have a triggered response. Our heart rate would increase. We'd probably start to sweat. And we didn't do that on purpose. Then I could point out, hey, that actually wasn't a snake you saw. It looked like a snake, but it was a rope. Now, once you know it's a rope, I can say, now make yourself sweat and make your heart beat fast again. And you wouldn't be able to do it. Because once we know the truth, we're free in that. But before we do, it's a snake. And April was a snake for a minute. And she didn't shift out of that perception yet, maybe, or who knows. It also includes things like saying, people will say, I'm broke. I can't go on a trip. I'm broke. I can't go out this weekend. I'm broke. I'm broke. I'm broke. I'm broke. This is feeling based. What would be facts could be, my bank balance is minus $13. I have $85 in the bank. I'm not going to go out this weekend. This is factual. So the encouragement from the class tonight is to start to speak in factual terms. Factual terms. And it could look like everybody was mad when we left church on Sunday. Everybody was upset about something that happened. It's like, no, that's an exaggeration. There's nothing ever true, and nothing is another exaggeration. So it's not factual that everyone was upset. 3 people stated their dissatisfaction to me directly. 6 people said they wanted more information about what we presented. They appeared to be frustrated. So factual terms versus interpretations, which are feeling based. It could look like if April said, hey, Martha, can you have supper with me tomorrow night when you get in up here? And I said, no, thank you, honey. I can't have supper with you. She may have a feeling about that. After all I've done for Martha, how dare you? She's mean. She's a witch. She's ungrateful. So she'll interpret the no and then believe what she made up about it. Versus all that actually happened is April asked Martha to dinner. Martha thanked her and said no to dinner. So that's the facts of the matter. And keeping a clearer distinction between facts and feelings will leave us in presence. We're not going to leave our own presence of mind, presence of heart, presence of high self. Therefore, we have a greater potential, a greater capacity to keep clear about what actually happened, less likely to interpret it, and less likely to believe what we just made up about it. So this also means putting a period in. So that means power to the period. That's how I say it. Power to the period. I invited her to dinner and she said no. Period. She thanked me and said no. Period. And if we don't get that period in there, we put a comma in there. And then after the comma is hi ho, off to hell we go. Because the comma goes in there with she disrespects me. She thinks she's better than me. She's always too busy. She's ungrateful. She said no to dinner, and that means she doesn't like me. She said no to dinner. She rejected me. She says no to dinner. Note to self, I'm not ever going to ask her again. So all the pain, all the trouble is after the comma. So getting that period in there can keep us in presence and in potential. And then when they say, hey, April said she asked you to dinner and you said no to her. So I actually did. What's the question? Is April's hurt by your no? It's like, I would absolutely understand that. And based on what we think no means. Because most of us are still operating from the psyche of the injured 3-year-old in us. And we think no equals they don't care about me. Or no equals they don't love me. Instead of no, it's just a factual, honest response sometimes. So think about then how you may apply this. This also applies to things like, there's a little segment in the book where I say, learning to clearly distinguish between facts and feelings has been very helpful to me. Growing up, my mother would yell. Did any of you have a mother that yelled? Anybody have anybody in your family that yelled?
The father and a neighbor.
Yeah. Growing up, my mother would yell. So what factually was happening is she's yelling. Woman yelling. Period. Now the trouble starts when I insert a me in it. She's yelling at me. Mother is yelling at me. Welcome to hell. Versus mother's yelling, woman yelling. And little kids didn't know this. As little kids, we didn't have the discerning capacity to know that the yelling belongs to her. It's not mine. And if I don't insert a me in it, I won't absorb that. And we didn't have this capacity as little kids, and we're not little kids anymore. So we do have a discernment. We do have a different level of distinction between somebody's yelling belongs to them and they're yelling, period. And the mind will say, no, it's clear that they're yelling at me. It's like, that's where the pain is versus they're yelling, period. That's what's factual. And if I don't subject myself to that, I won't suffer as much. Even if it's uncomfortable to be in the presence of someone yelling, I'm going to suffer less if I don't tell myself and then believe it that her yelling is at me, or her yelling is because of me or my responsibility. So then with the period in there, she's yelling, period, instead of she's yelling at me, comma, that means she doesn't care about me. That means I'm not safe with her. That means she's out of control. That means. So getting the period in there is a direct access to presence and potential. Comments, questions?
And I have it set up, everybody, so that you can unmute yourselves.
Carol, go ahead. Carol, is your hand up? Yeah, go ahead.
I was just pushing my hearing aid in, but I had a reflexologist tell me that something that was very helpful. I tend to make up. I'm a recovering story maker upper person, recovering, and she said what helps her is until you get to the next level or whatever, she will say to a friend, "I'm making up a story about such and such, whatever it is that's concerning you. Is that true?" To get feedback from the other person. And I love that. It was like a huge aha. I said, "Oh my gosh, I loved it." You know what I mean? Because yeah, it's a process for me. Yeah.
It's a great example. And I used it with my mother too. My mother's passed now, and we have a very harmonious relationship. And when all the emotion is down, there was a very special flower that she wanted to buy. It was expensive and something she'd always wanted and was in the last year of her life. And it had to be nurtured. It couldn't be put out till the moon got right and the sun got right. And so it was finally time to put the plant out. So I was down on my knees in the flower bed with this treasured plant. And I had my hands out like this.
Mm-hmm.
He had the plant and was handing the plant over. And mysteriously, it snapped right in two.
Oh crap. Oh my God.
So it sounds woo-woo-ish, but it's like my hands were like this. So who knows what happened, but she yelled out, "Look what you have done."
Mm-mm.
And I said, and to your point, Carol, are you believing that I brought the plant on purpose?
There you go. To get information, that's good. Yes.
And said, I don't know where that came from.
Oh, bless her heart.
I was filled with a great deal of compassion.
Um,
And it's the first time that I'd had that depth of compassion for her, because I suddenly became aware that if that was coming through her like that, what that would be like.
mm-mm.
That it was coming through her in that same intensity to come out of her like that.
Yeah.
So I had a new depth of compassion that I had never been able to access.
Very cool. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you. Mm-hmm.
Anybody else about anything I presented or that particular chapter on facts and feelings, Linda?
I'm going to have a difficult time when somebody's in conflict with me in an argumentative mode. I'm going to have to pause as I'm singing in my mind. Hi ho, it's off to hell we go.
Somebody actually put it on a coffee mug and gave it to me. And honestly, Linda, it could bring a little levity to it. Not in all situations, depending on how triggered somebody is. But if we can access the higher brain, even the midbrain, and go, oh, I've got to be careful here, because if I keep interpreting here, hi ho, off to hell I go. So I've got to be careful. So I'm going to have to pause and restore myself before I say any more about this. I'm going to have to pause and just have a minute of silence or 5 seconds of silence or something before I fire off this email. So that seconds, even milliseconds, can make a big difference, honey. And this little funny can bring some levity to an intense situation at times also. Any humor, any ability to have even a little bit of humor puts us right back in at least the mammalian brain. where people that are triggered and uptight and serious and afraid can't laugh. There's nothing funny. So any ability to access even a little humor can put us back into a higher part of our brain. Even if we don't get up in here to the high thinking, to the cognition, just to get into that little hair of playfulness can go a long way.
As a nurse working in ICU, we would quite often make some humorous statement, which if anybody else heard, they would probably roll their eyes, but that tension would be just so intense, especially during a code. Somebody would crack a joke and it just really kind of de-escalated our anxiety.
It's a great way of saying it, and that's graphic the way you said that, because bringing anxiety down is what got my functioning back up. So that's a powerful balancer there to say the more regressed I get here, the less I'm able to think clearly. So just somebody making a little funny or breaking, short circuiting that a bit obviously made a great deal of difference. Laura, was your hand up?
Yeah, it's something that no matter how much I read or hear about it in church or talk to a therapist, I mean, it's just something I've really struggled with. And one of the words you used when you were talking about I call it negative mind chatter, but you used the word, the herd of thoughts. And that word herd was just so perfect for me, because that's what it feels like. It feels so out of control when I get going with some story that's just all made up, and it just feels like a herd that that's hard to stop and hard to put that period. And when you mentioned the levity, there was farther along in chapter 3 where you said, I'm not going to say it exactly right, but something like, if the horse is dead, dismount. And I mean, I just literally laughed out loud by myself in bed reading the book, because it was just, I mean, it, like you said, adding the levity, it was like perfect to sort of read it like that, of just like, geez, Lord, just, get off the blank horse.
Well, if you take nothing away from this class or this book but that, Laura, I'm convinced we have changed the soul of humanity. And which help in Beverly's point, if I'm in a conversation with somebody and there's not an opening, it's like the horse is dead. Dismount. Like I may as well be beating my head against a brick wall and wondering why my head is bleeding. Versus I can stop here and notice this person I'm with is in a monologue, not a dialogue. And I don't have to frustrate myself any further than I have already. So then I can stop, restore myself, pause, pray, and say, ask me, what would a sane, sensible response be here? What would a sane, sensible response be here in this interaction? Or who do I want to be in this interaction? Regardless of what kind of, whatever they're being, that belongs to them. How am I going to be with this? That holds all my power, all the power in the universe, actually. Chapter 4 is similar. And it is to profess my own values and my beliefs without attacking and judging others. And nobody alive is able to not judge. We're all judgers. We're judgmental. All the mind's operating system is judgment, up, down, black, white, tall, short, too little, too much. So it's a judging machine. So in this context, I mean judgment like to make wrong without attacking or making wrong how other people believe. So they get to believe what they believe and how they believe, and so do I. And if I don't want people dumping their philosophies and beliefs and all that on me, then I can't, in my own integrity, dump my beliefs and philosophies out on other people. I've got to be able to bear that we have differences in this. And I had a distinct one of these in my family when, and this was around another time of a great anxiety during COVID. And with vaccinations, the talks around vaccinations and non-vaccinations and non-vaxxing and that. And my brother, my only living brother, is very opposed to vaccinations. He was absolutely not get one. And I got a vaccination, and I did not plan to tell him about it because I didn't think it would come up in conversation. And I said to him, hey, I'm going over to some other city nearby here today he asked what I was doing this afternoon. And I answered it honestly, I'm going over there to get a vaccination. And there was dead silence from him. And he said, sis, I'm afraid getting that vaccination will hurt you. And I said, you could be right. I don't know what effect it'll have on me. And that's the same reason I want you to have a vaccination, because I'm afraid you not getting a vaccination will hurt you. So even with opposing, polarized beliefs about it, there was still a heartstring in place, because I didn't attack him or judge where he stood. And in fact, I was able to see how similar we were. That he believed the vaccination would hurt. I believe not getting vaccination would hurt. As an example. Chapter 6 is accepting differences between people. Now, we operate with, we're a like-minded bunch, or we're a like-minded church, or a like-minded group or something. And it just ain't so. We're like-minded at times. We're polarized at times. And it's like allowing for that, just like there's flood and drought. It's not one or the other. It's both and. And neither flood nor drought is popular. And there's a reason for drought and flood, apparently. They exist. They have a function beyond some of, at least my comprehension. And I know that they're vital because they're included in creation. So a lady was coming to Nashville, and she asked, could she stop here and take me to dinner? And I said, I would love that. And she said, I want to take you for crab legs. And I said, how do you know that I love crab legs? And she said, you wrote it in your book. So this is the chapter where I talk about crab legs. And I forgot, remember, I told you I never sat and wrote a book. This is like part of the teaching and presentations I've made when somebody transcribed it and put it in the book. The family I was raised in feel very differently. Not only do they not eat crab legs, they don't want to be at a table with me eating crab legs. They don't want to smell them. They don't want to look at them. They don't want them near them, for example. So where does it leave me if I'm with my family and they feel so strongly about crab legs and I want to eat crab legs? So it's up to me if I'm going to accept this difference, or if I'm going to push or force or demand my way on them. Even if I know their preferences, even if I know where they stand, what am I going to do in this situation? And I'm guided by, I don't want to erode my relationship with them. So I can eat crab legs some other time. I can have crab legs when they're not around. Anytime. I mean, we live in such privilege. So I'm not going to push crab legs at them or ask them to suck it up for me to eat crab legs, because I don't want to erode my relationship with them. And if it was that important to me, I'd find a way to do it somehow. So I don't have to abandon myself in it. I could compromise with myself. Like, I'm not going to do it tonight with my family, but I'll take myself out some other day this week and have the crab legs. One of my friends is allergic to peanuts. And it took me years to understand the fear that she lives in, that somebody's going to bring peanuts in her environment. I could not comprehend the depths of this fear. Now, it wasn't because I'm not intelligent. It wasn't because I can't track what an allergy means and an allergic reaction means and what shutting down your throat and your breathing system would mean and how scary that would be for somebody. It just wasn't a big deal to me. I couldn't comprehend what it was like for her. And then she came in, I was in her home, and see, I forget about this. I only see her once a year. And I was sitting reared back on her couch in her own house eating peanuts when she came in from work. So, did I disrespect her? Did I put her life in jeopardy? Did I intend to hurt her? None of that. None of that. And I can't be shocked or surprised that she had a reaction when she walked in and she said, "Are you eating peanuts in my house?" Yes. And I'm sorry. And I was mindless about it. I didn't recall that you had a peanut allergy. This are what I keep in my travel bag. This is what is handed out on airlines, most of them. So it's a go-to when I need something to eat. I'm sincerely sorry. And no, I wouldn't do anything to intentionally harm you. And out go the peanuts. The differences in us and how she could hold me responsible for that, similar to what April shared earlier. That she could, just like I can't comprehend the depth of fear she has about this, she could not comprehend that I can't track her peanut allergy. After she's told me and told me and told. So let's ask the question now and have a minute here of reflection. What would it be like in you if you accepted differences in people? If you accepted differences in people, different viewpoints, different responses, different tones of voice, different ideology. If you truly accepted differences, what would that be like? April?
What's coming to mind is combination of this and what you said a few moments ago about like minds. And I think what would be a difference for me is I would remember that even when I'm with someone I consider like-minded, there's still differences. Because sometimes that's when I will be like with this person at work, even caught off guard, like, what? You know better. You know me better. And it's in that, sometimes in that like-minded place that I become mindless.
Yes, honey. Or that we have a false expectation.
Exactly.
That she should have known my good intentions. She should have known I wouldn't harm her. She should have known I wouldn't bring a peanut in. Yes, especially in those, and including some of our closest relationships. So accepting differences absolutely requires me to grow myself up and allow the full spectrum of human beings to be human beings, being what humans have been being for 2,000 recorded years, the full spectrum of it, whether I like it or not. I don't have to like it. Comments?
Martha, I just want to share that since I discovered it probably at the beginning of this year, a prayer that repeats through my head from Imelda Shanklin. I think she was a Unity minister, is, Father, forgive me for expecting in the human that which can only be found in the divine. And when I read that, it made me laugh and brought tears to my eyes all at the same time, because I had to reflect it back to myself as well.
It's just like that, honey. And forgive me for believing humans are going to be different than they've been since recorded history. And remove this cup from me. Remove this delusion from me.
I think, Carol, I think I would feel more loving and more peaceful if I did that. I was just talking about something like that similarly in a class at church this morning. And I could feel myself getting agitated just as I was talking about describing it. But acceptance would lead to peace and feeling loving, which would feel way better than the other. Way better.
Yes, Carol, thank you. And that's where presence and potential is. And the more acceptance, and you've likely heard it, the answer to every question is acceptance. Accepting differences. Chapter 7 is taking responsibility for our own emotions. And I do a deep immersive work every year that starts in October. April's been part of the immersive work. And you can ask her questions if she's open to it, or you can ask me questions tonight. But if you want more information about it, go over to marthacreek.com, marthacreek.com, and subscribe to the newsletter, which is free. And it comes out the first day of each month. And in the August 1st newsletter, and then in the September 1st newsletter, all the details about this immersive process will be in there. And we work together from October to May, 8 months consecutively in a presentation I do every month, and then in small groups and in private sessions with me. And it primarily deals in a deep inner way to take responsibility for our own emotions, and including emotions that we have suppressed, depressed, denied, and disowned since we were quite young, and to give them a different life, and to get ourselves out of the bind and the reservoir of these suppressed, disowned feelings, so that presence and potential is a way of being for us, not just a platitude or a abstract idea. There's a few minutes left here, so we got through like 5 or 6 chapters. So maybe we'll do this again. I'm very open to it. Thank you for being here tonight. And any questions, comments, anything in the world you want to ask me, the floor is open here.
Martha will be with us this weekend, I just want to say, at Unity of Royal Oak. So if you are available, I know, I don't ever try to pull anyone away from one service or the other, but even if you want to hop in the car after service at Unity East and head over to Royal Oak after that, although Martha will be doing the service as well, she'll also be doing a workshop right after. It is amazing, and I highly recommend the program that begins in October, and I'm happy to answer questions about that after, or even when I see you all in a couple weeks, if not before then.
Thank you, April. So there's all sorts of videos on the YouTube. That's a free YouTube channel too. Nancy?
I am just so touched by your brother's response to hearing you were going to get a vaccination, and by your reply that you didn't know if it was going to hurt you or not. That's going to be the big outstanding memory for me. That was a hot button issue, and the button didn't get pushed by either one of you. I am just so touched by that.
Thank you, Nancy, and for verbalizing it. And that's a powerful takeaway in general. You know, and I'm trained in conflict resolution, mediation, and in critical, crucial conversations. And one of the primary teachings in that is to lead when honest, to lead with "you could be right."
Mm-hmm.
That in itself diffuses. That in itself can keep somebody else above the line.
Yeah,
You could be right.
I'll remember that.
Thank you. Anybody else? Lovely to see you, Mary. I'll see you on Sunday or tomorrow night, I guess. I hope to.
Thank
Friday.
you. Thank you.
You're most welcome for my part. It's a privilege for me, as I said. Connie, thank you, Linda, for the work you took to get it possible, and Connie for being here to support us technology wise.
Happy to help and happy you're here. Thank you so much for your time.
You want to pray us out before you leave? We
I'd love
thank you very much for being there, and some people know you and others just maybe, how many people this is the first experience with? There we go.
About
You-
almost half, honey, or third or half, yeah.
You have made a difference and reached out, and the world has gotten larger with your presence, right? And the potential is there.
And for all of us. So maybe your hand on your own heart if it feels right to you. And what it took you to be here tonight, to stay a student, to develop and care for the relationship of yours with the divine. So we pray in certainty of our divinity. We pray in celebration of our divinity, of our infinite eternal life, of our infinite eternal potential. We pray in gratitude and joy that we are awake to that, aligned and atoned in that, and absolutely with devotion and fervor going in that direction. We celebrate this is the next greatest iteration of ourselves, and we celebrate knowing that whatever we do to contribute to our own soul's evolution, we have contributed to the evolution of the soul of humanity. We delight in that. We humbly redevote ourselves to this and to living this out in our way of being and always. So be it. Amen.